Let's talk right now about the Reform Party conference. Oh, no, sorry, it's the Labour Party conference in Liverpool this week. But my goodness, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference because they seem to spend most of their time talking about reform and Nigel Farage. No doubt he'll be mentioned by the Prime Minister in his keynote speech this afternoon when he tries to tell us about what his actual aims in life are. Certainly the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has been talking about reform. And Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, I'm not even sure why he got into it. He has been talking about Nigel Farage, has talked about how Nigel Farage is coming for the people who make the NHS. He called the Reform UK leader a snake oil salesman and a con artist. He says that the next election will send Farage packing. Farage says, go home. I say you are home. I've got your back. We've got your back. And in the next election, we'll send Farage packing. Let's talk about this with Laila Cunningham. She's a Reform councillor and co-leads Reform's Law and Order campaign. A very good afternoon to you, Laila.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well indeed. I'm surprised you're not at Reform conference this week because it does really seem to be Reform and Nigel Farage are living rent-free in Labour's heads, doesn't it?
Labour, Lib Dems, Conservatives, they can only talk about us because we're the only ones worth responding to. We're the only ones speaking what everyone wants to speak about. I mean, it's actually comical that Shabana Mahmood's immigration plan is really kind of a carbon copy of ours, except that they're moving the indefinite leave to remain goalposts.
So, well, hold on a minute. No, they said that yours was racist and immoral. That's what the Prime Minister said. But theirs doesn't backdate. Theirs isn't retrospective. And that's the racist and immoral bit, I think.
But it's not about race. It's not about where you're from.
No one mentioned race, but that doesn't mean
it. Exactly. And it's about doing what's best for the country, what's best for the taxpayer. Maybe they should start doing that themselves. We don't care where you were born or what race you are. If you come to this country and you've been here for decades, then, you know, by all means, claim citizenship, or else you'll have to claim a visa. What is wrong with that? What is racist? I would like them to tell me what exactly is racist. But Julia, theirs is really very similar to ours. In fact, those that are indefinite leave to remain, she says that she wants to move the goalpost for those that can claim it after 5 years to 10 years if they don't meet certain requirements. And they wouldn't even get it after 10 years if they still don't meet them. So what happens if they don't meet the criteria after a decade? Are they kicked out? Is she going to split families up?
Well, I mean, I imagine that would then be racist and immoral, but it would be okay because Labour would be doing it. But
yeah, this is fine for that.
Yeah, but this is the interesting thing. There's no doubt at all when it comes to certainly any immigration policy, legal or illegal, or that all the other parties are chasing reform, and you have massively moved the Overton window on all of these issues. But we've also had the issue with Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, talking about how the people who were on this march, this Unite the Kingdom march, a little bit earlier this month, organised by Tommy Robinson. Look, I hold no candle for Tommy Robinson. Don't send me messages, everybody. I don't care, but I don't hold no candle for him. But I also know an awful lot of people who went on that march. People who I think most people would be very surprised would have gone on that march. And again, people of all backgrounds, colours, jobs, who were on that march and said there was a massive sense of camaraderie and it was about standing up for their country and their patriotism and the like, nothing whatsoever to do with any other agenda. But Shabana Mahmood likened those people, she says not all of them, but some of them, to she said the skinheads and the people who were bashing Pakistanis in the 60s and 70s. What do you make of that criticism?
I think it's disgusting. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And she says that some of them were skinheads and racists. But her following sentence, I think, was, they have legitimate concerns and we have to address them. So which is it? Are they racist? Is she admitting that racist concerns should be legitimised and taken into consideration? They don't know what they're doing. Labour's message is totally muddled. They insult the normal public as racist while quietly adopting the same policies. And I think it's absolutely disgusting. I take all her comments, all of Labour's comments, as a big insult. She said that Muslim hatred is off the charts. Well, I can tell you, Julia, I'm Muslim. I don't feel it. Because Muslims who come here and embrace Britain feel absolutely no hatred. It's the British people resent those who refuse to integrate, who want to change the country that's given them so much. And who can blame them? People want to protect their values, their British way of life, and they want those that come to be grateful and want to embrace it too. So I take that, I see that as insulting as well.
Well, you're certainly going to find it insulting what Keir Starmer is going to say. He's speaking in about an hour and a quarter's time. We've just had a preview revealed by the Telegraph that Keir Starmer is going to suggest that Nigel Farage does not love Britain. He's going to say, for me, patriotism is about love and pride, about serving an interest that's more than yourself, a common good. And the question I ask seriously of Nigel Farage and Reform is, do they love our country? Do they want to serve our country? All of it, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, every region, nation and city, or do they just want to stir the pot of division because that's what works for their interests? Do they truly believe in our potential, in our brilliance, in all our innovative workers, in our economy? And when push comes to shove, do they really want to fix our problems and renew Britain? Or, as we've seen time and again, whether it's the SNP, the extremes of the left or Reform and the Tories now, do they actually want Britain to fail? He says, I think we know the answer to that question. That is a preview of what Keir Starmer is going to say about your party and your leader. What do you say to that?
I say the country is failing, and the only party and the only leader that's going to save it and has put any policy forward to save it is Nigel Farage. We're the only ones that are talking about putting Britain first and not international treaties and prioritising illegal migrants and prioritising British citizens over illegal migrants. And let me tell you, Reform and myself completely condemn racism outright. But we won't let Labour dismiss, the hundreds of thousands of people on that march, or ordinary people, just because we want secure borders and fair rules.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Can I also ask you just finally about the NHS, because Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, speaking this morning, and we've certainly seen this measure. Obviously, they've done some focus groups suggesting that, people are a bit worried about, the NHS in Reform's hands because of some comments that Nigel Farage made a long time ago about the future of the NHS. Does the Nigel Farage to the Reform Party want to privatise the NHS, as is often claimed?
Absolutely not. We believe very strongly in the NHS, and we
Why?
Well, because I think, so my husband's American, and if you're ill in America and you don't have insurance, it's...
But those aren't the only two models. I mean, most of Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they have a social insurance system where people pay in, they get much better healthcare. They don't wait in long waiting lists, and they pay probably about the same amount as they're paying in taxes for the NHS, and the government covers the people who can't afford it. Why would you stand by the NHS in those circumstances?
Well, I have a lot of my family work in the NHS. My family's been saved by the NHS, and it's not about how much money we pour into the NHS. It's about spending it right. We've spent 40 billion into the NHS in the past few years, and much worse outcomes.
No, 40 billion is just the top up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, poured into is what I said. And that needs to change. We can't just keep pouring money into it endlessly without expecting any change or reform. Many things, there's a huge managerial level layer that can be removed. For instance, when I was working at the CPS, we had a huge sustainability department that were on double what I was getting paid. We're just lawyers with computers. Why do we need a sustainability department?
Look, I think a lot of people agree with that. We're going to have to leave it there. But Laila Cunningham, Reform UK Councillor, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online, still with me in the studio. Let's go back to this preview of what Keir Starmer's going to say. Basically, believes that Nigel Farage doesn't love Britain. He just wants to stoke division. Do you think? That'll probably play well in the whole. Do you think that will play well with voters who are wavering between Labour and Reform in those red wall constituencies?
No, not in the slightest. I think people will interpret these attacks on Reform as racist, as extreme, as divisive, as an attack on them. You're telling the people who, at the very least, that they are badly misled in terms of
turning
towards the party. Yeah.
Or you're a racist.
Exactly. That's the message that is being sent out here. And you would think that after the decade or more we've had of political elites being forced to recognise that you cannot smear voters, you cannot dismiss their concerns, because at one point or another they're going to rebel against you at the ballot box. You would think that, all of these years after,
2016 should have been a little bit of a giveaway.
It should have been that giveaway. And yet the Labour Party in particular, everything from that bigoted woman moment under Gordon Brown through to Brexit and everything else, should have known that just dismissing what used to be their historic base amongst the working class in this country in those kinds of terms is a hiding to nothing. I know Starmer's trying to dress this up as, I'm talking about the leadership, not... Yeah. That's not going to wash. People, and people are not going to to make that clean distinction, because that's the message that it's going to send out to them.
Yeah, I get that they really are really bad at this being in government thing.
Bad at politics, bad at talking, bad at communication.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I knew it would be bad, but did you think it would be this?
We've had this conversation literally every hour of every day since they've come to power. No one could have possibly dreamt they could be this bad. They really are.